Hi everyone, my name is Peroxide Pick, aka Bryce. I'm here today with a video on my load order for Skyrim Special Edition on the Xbox One in 2020. The last time I made a load order video like this one was 2 years ago. It was and still is my most popular video on the channel. Since then, I have drastically increased my knowledge and experience with mods on Skyrim. This new load order doesn't prioritize graphics and immersiveness, but rather stability first, then everything else after. I have a few mods returning from my old mod list and a lot of new ones. I currently have 148 downloaded. That said, this is going to be a long video, so stick with me. I can't talk. So, cut right here. I released my vanilla versus modded Skyrim video just a few days ago. The mods that you saw take effect in that video are the ones in this one. The mod list will be in the description in the form of a link to my Discord where you can download a Word document of the mod list with the official names and links to Bethesda.net. Now that we have the introduction out of the way, let's get into the load order. I will not be going into detail to each mod, just a quick summarization of what it does. That way this video will not be exceptionally long. To start it off, we have USEP. Also, unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. This is a staple mod, always to have, fixes a significant amount of the bugs within the game. Next I have a font replacer. This one is for me. It's Endural/Dumbledore. I prefer this one. You can choose any one that you want, just don't do two at once. Then we have 60 FPS menus, natural interface. It increases the FPS whenever you're in a menu and switching around, so that way you don't lag as much. We have TESG load screen replacer. It replaces all of the loading screens with a painted version of a screenshot within Skyrim. And there's also lore text added in to each painted version. We have music for Skyrim Extra, adding in a significant amount of music tracks for exploration, combat music. It does not get rid of the old ones from vanilla, just adds them in so you'll hear these more often than the vanilla ones. Immersive Sounds Compendium replaces the normal sounds within the game that sound wrong with better ones that sound accurately, such as using a warhammer doesn't sound like using a sword whenever you hit an enemy. Next we have Reverb and Ambiance Overhaul. This changes it so that the game actually takes into account of being within an area or outside and how the sound works. Oblivion HUD with pastel map markers, it changes the UI that you have to have all health, magic, and stamina off to the left with only a dot in the middle instead of the cursor marker, and the compass down at the bottom. Also colorizing all map markers within the game to have a different color instead of just white. Improved sleep and wait menu increases the wait menu from just 24 hours rather, to a whole week. That way you can wait as long as you want if you're ever trying to grow ingredients or wait for merchants to get back in inventory into their shop. This is a great mod to put in, very small. Renamed arrows and bolts is a very simple one where it renames all arrows to have arrow in front of it, so it's all categorized in the same area. That way you don't have to keep looking around for orcish bolts or something like that. Gold to Septum has changed the name from Gold to Septum because that's what it's supposed to be called. Smoke-free loading screens is a great one to add on to if you do the TESG mod where you add in those painted screenshots. This way the smoke doesn't show up in front of it, making it very distracting to look at whenever you're trying to look at the painting and read the lore text that goes with it. Finally, first-person magic animations replaces most of the magic animations that don't look so bland with a more lively look to them. We also have Mofumufu, I can't say that right, 372 combat animations, replacing a lot of the combat animations within the game to look a little bit more lively as well. Improved dual wield animation is the same thing, just for dual wielding. XP32 Maximum Skeleton plus Realistic Ragdoll is a massively great mod with such a small download to help increase the realism of how the game works. So, instead of an enemy's doing a spin dance death, they actually get knocked back or thrown around with realistic physics. Realistic impacts is for any large enemy attackers, such as dragons, mammoths, giants. Whenever you get hit, you can get knocked back instead of just getting hit slightly, and you're a mountain, apparently, that can take the hit of a dragon's wing to the chest. Next, we have a very simple mod, 150% jumping and sprinting. This just seems natural since it felt wrong to not be able to jump over very small fences within the game, and you were apparently able to yell fire from your chest. Sprinting was an extra increase that I decided to do, just so that way you felt a little bit faster. Bandolier bags and pouches is a great mod where it adds in some very realistic looking extra gear that you can add on to increase your storage size. There are multiple different looks and sizes and increased carry weight items within this mod for only a very small download size of 21 megabytes. Next, we have Warmonger Armory SSE. This mod adds in many of my most favorite armor mods all in one pack. We first have the Nord Hero, the Pathfinder, and the Shadow Warlock. All very awesome, very detailed armor mods that are very balanced within the game that look amazing. Next, we have Black Mage Armor SE. When it comes to being a mage, you don't have a lot of options in the vanilla game for what armor you would use. You'd either use clothing or light armor, pretty much. You wouldn't want to use heavy because then you got too slow and you weren't really investing into health at that point. So Black Mage Armor adds in multiple clothing, light armor, heavy armor into the game with different looks and styles to make it so that you can customize your own mage in your very own way. Better Shrouded Armor Replacer replaces the Shrouded Armor from the Dark Brotherhood to look like you're not wearing a onesie. In my opinion, the vanilla Dark Brotherhood outfit looks terrible. Armor Variants Expansion is a relatively new mod that's pretty awesome, that adds in a little bit of flair, different types of armor within the game, but with the same armor rating. It's a very nice mod that I suggest for you to try out since it's only 30 megabyte download size. Next, we have Left Hand Rings, a very simple mod where I think it's not overpowered. There are other mods where it allows you to wear as many rings as you want. I think one extra ring is pretty simple and not overpowered, and makes sense since other Elder Scrolls games you could wear too. This just adds in left hand rings where it'll say left-handed silver ring and so on. Wearable Lanterns is a mod where you can add a lantern onto your belt or wherever you like, so that way you don't have to carry around a torch in dark areas. With the lighting mods I have in this game, areas are darker and lighting effects are more realistic, so this is a great add-on, since it's such a small download size. Light Guard Armor Overhaul is a massively massive download size for such a small adjustment, but it's totally worth it in my opinion. The guard armors all look exactly the same through all the holds in vanilla, as well as the storm cloaks, which are technically guards. I wanted it so that all guards from different holds had their own styles, so that way they actually felt like cities, and that way the storm cloaks ended up having their own military outfit. This changes all holds within the game to have their own very knightly or Nordic type style of armors that are own personalized. This is the light version. I recommend only the light version. The other one doesn't seem all that worth it because it doesn't add that much more detail. Improves Spellbreaker Ward and just improves the spell ward on Spellbreaker to be an increased size, since if you were increasing the difficulty of the game, which I do, the spell ward on Spellbreaker doesn't seem all that worth it in vanilla. This adds on a little bit more, from 50 to 120. That way it's a little bit stronger. It is a Daedric artifact, so it would make sense if it's a little bit stronger. Better Thieves Guild Armor increases some of the stats on the armor for enchantments to make it a little bit more worth it, especially on the Master Guild armors. Ultra Dragon Priest Mask takes all of the other Dragon Priest masks enchantments and adds it onto its own. That way it's actually worth going for it within the game instead of getting it and then finding out you have a small chance of not dying that doesn't seem to ever take effect. Now, when you get the Ultra Dragon Priest Mask, you get all of them combined, a serious upgrade compared to what it was before. Next, we have the original sleeving Skyrim. This adds in sleeves and pants to a lot of the armors within the game, because it makes sense since you're in Skyrim, which is supposed to be a very cold area, that we would wear sleeves and shirts underneath our armor and pants. Then there's Old Kingdom Armor Overhaul. This overhauls retexturizes all vanilla armor within the game to make it look significantly better. When combining these two mods, you're going to want them in this exact order: the original Sleeving Skyrim, Old Kingdom Armor Overhaul, and then Old Kingdom Sleeving Skyrim add-on. This is the exact way you want to have it. If you don't have it in this way, the armor will not look right, and then it might possibly crash your game if you put it on. Please note, put it in this exact order. Next, we have improved closed face helmets. This makes it so that there's an actual opening within the helmet so you can see yours and other NPCs' eyes whenever you're playing. That way it's not just a dark black hole. It makes it a lot more scary and thrilling to see the eyes of an orc that charges at you with a battle axe instead of just a black hole nothing. Immersive Leveling Xbox One. This increases some of the perks within the game to level up slightly faster in most areas in the game. That way, when you're playing through on a character, you don't take exceptionally long time to level up some of those harder areas. Just an example, to the right here, we have Smithing, Enchanting, and Alchemy level up 50% faster, some of the most hardest levelings in the game and most used ones. Then Speech, Lockpicking, and Pickpocket 20% faster. Some of the ones that I've least used in the game, with that little bit of boost, it makes it a lot more easy to level them up and worth actually investing into. Illusion, Conjuration, Alteration, and Restoration are 15% faster. Never really noticed them to be taking that long except for Restoration and Conjuration, but it's a nice little boost for those. Heavy Armor, Light Armor, and Block are now 10% faster. These are very nice ones since all of your defensive ones are gonna take a lot longer since they would normally only level up if you got hit, which you try to avoid in the game if you're playing smart. Destruction, Two-Handed, One-Handed, Archery, and Sneak are all on the vanilla leveling. They didn't want to increase the leveling for that, which makes a lot of sense since they do level up pretty fast, since those are your attacking, offensive skills. Next, this is very important. Mysticism, a magic overhaul, a very small download that adds a significant amount of new spells into the game. When using Mysticism and our next mod, Ordinator, make sure Mysticism is above Ordinator or it'll cause problems within the Ordinator revamp so that you can't invest perks into it. Remember, Mysticism over Ordinator. Now that we've gone over Mysticism, Ordinator is next, and possibly my most favorite mod of all time. This revamps all perks within the game to have their own specific perks and skill trees. Instead of investing only 5 times into the first perk on One-Handed where it just doubles your damage, now you can put it in so that you do 25% more damage, but then you can choose to use either swords, war axes, maces, or even daggers. These are all options to go through skill trees where they will then have additional effects. War axes will give you a damage over time bleed on enemies that will stack as you hit them. As you go up the skill trees and you invest more into a tree, they get significantly stronger. This requires you to play in a specific way, making the game a lot easier whenever you play that way, if not a lot harder. Next we have Apocalypse Magic of Skyrim, adding in a significant amount of more spells into the game that are very balanced and usable without seeming overpowered. It's a relatively large download for a magic mod, 72 megabytes, but it's absolutely worth it because it's very well kept care of by the mod author. It's now on version 18, where it's had a lot of controversy with some of the spells in the game that he's gone back to reduce or increase to make them viable. Next we have Lupine Werewolf Expansion SE. This mod changes the werewolf perks within the game to make it not as bland as in vanilla. Lupine Werewolf Expansion SE is not the only one that does this. There is Moonlight Tales, but I find Moonlight Tales to be far too large of a download just to increase werewolf if you're not going to invest only in werewolf. There is another one that is relatively new out in the market. I have not invested into it yet, and I don't feel like I will because I do like Lupine the best. Lupine, as you can see in the picture, gives you two different trees that you can go down. One is with Hircine, and one where you defy Hircine and become your own werewolf. One where you are fast, and one where you are tanky. They end up bringing back and crossing over at the higher tiers where they start gaining the same abilities, but in the lower ones they have their own very unique abilities. Imperious Races of Skyrim is our next mod, very small download, that changes all racial abilities and powers within the game to have a much more immersive and lore-friendly effects. As an example, all orcs now have the ability to jump in the air, land on the ground, and create a small shockwave that knocks over or stuns larger enemies within its radius, giving you time to attack them without anything interrupting you. Another one is Khajiit now naturally sprint faster, have more damage with open claws, and can see at night. Each race will have its own little quest to do to get its own power activating ability. Nords, their one ability is gained after clearing 10 different dungeons or quests through the game. Depends on the quest, honestly. Most easiest is to do like little dungeons, even going through mines and clearing those, to get its ability to conjure a spirit of itself to fight with it. Lore-based heights for Imperious is a great mod that makes it so that Nords are actually tall, Wood Elves are actually short, and everybody seems to be the exact size that they're supposed to be. When using these two mods, make sure lore-based heights is below Imperious. Next we have Summer Mist enchantments, adding in a large number of new enchantments into the game that are unique in every single way. These are automatically applied to all weapons and armor, clothing, and unique items within the game immediately. There's no need to do anything to acquire them, you will naturally find them within the wild and adventuring in Skyrim. 50% more perk points adds an extra perk point every other time you level up, giving you a little bit more perk points, especially that you'll need it since you have Ordinator, where there are a lot more perks. Perk points at skill levels 50, 75, and 100 is a great mod to get you more perk points when you invest a lot of time into each skills. Simple XP buff, a faster skill leveling, is a great mod that just slightly increases some of the stones within the game to give you, instead of a 20% increase, to a 40% increase. That's only on the Mage, Thief, and Warrior stones. The Lover stone is increased to 30, Rested skill bonuses from 5% to 10%, and Well Rested is from 10 to 20%. Lover's Comfort is from 15 to 30%. There's nothing you have to do, this is automatically applied. This I have in here, it may seem a little bit overpowered combined with the immersive leveling, but I frequently start new characters and they don't do everything within the game, so being able to fight Marag at a lower level requires me to have some more skills in there. So this plus immersive leveling gives me the ability to level up a little bit faster, so that way when I get to those end game bosses, I'm not so out leveled. Display enhancements. This is a great mod to change the in-game look for you. The main reason I use this mod is to slightly increase the saturation of the game, so that way colors pop a little bit more for me. The other big thing is you can change the FOV of the in-game character. That way, instead of looking at 70 FOV scale, you can increase it to almost 200. I use 90 personally, I think that's the best fit. 100 seems a little bit too much, I think 90 is the right fit. To do this, it's in your powers menu, just go there, select it, and you'll be able to tamper with it as much as you want. Just remember to save beforehand, just in case if you mess up too much stuff. If it requires you to go back into the main menu after a save and come back in, that's just its way of being able to implement properly into the game. Off-shoulder, third-person combat cam is one of the best mods I've had the pleasure of finding so far in the most recent months. This takes it from being super over above your character in third person to slightly over the shoulder, just like it says. It may seem like a dumb mod and very bland description, but this is a great way to make you feel like you're fighting as the character. Instead of in just first person, you can see the full character, how they're moving, the animations, and what they're wearing, and fighting all the enemies in a slightly closer area. It is a little bit awkward when looting because the cursor is directly inside the character's shoulder, but when fighting, it's one of the best experiences I've had in Skyrim. Next, we have archery tweaks. This slightly changes a little bit of the archery problems within the game, and it is compatible with all of these other mods on the side, specifically Ordinator. This mod I haven't undownloaded since I've got it because it made feeling like archery was actually worth using at that point. I'm not a big archer usually, I like being up close, but this drastically betters the archery in the game. The other problem with archery that I had in the game was that whenever I shot at an enemy, it seemed like the arrow went to them where they're at currently instead of where I was aiming ahead of them. This takes it off. It's called auto-aiming, where if you were slightly dragging the cursor in front of the enemy to account for them moving to the right, the arrow would fly directly at the enemy where they were at, and the enemy would keep moving to the right, the arrow flying past their shoulder, missing them. That takes this away, so that way you can actually lead your shots and actually hit the enemy. This drastically increased my archery gameplay within the game, and it's such a small download size that it's not even a kilobyte. Belt fasten quivers takes the quivers off of your back and down to your waist, very realistic way, and how it's actually used in most areas. This allows some clipping for some cloaks and backpack mods, but I don't use many of those, so I think it's a great add-on to this load order. Next we have Royal Armory New Artifacts. This changes most unique NPCs in the game, such as Ulfric and General Tullius, to have unique weapons. Instead of just a bland Imperial sword for General Tullius, he has a very unique sword with a unique enchantment on it and the unique way it looks. I keep on saying unique, but I'm trying to get this across to you that this mod, with such a small download, makes it worth actually doing the Civil War and actually maybe killing or looting some of these unique NPCs to get their unique weapons. Heavy Armory New Weapons SE adds in a bunch of different types of weapons within the game without such a huge download. It takes a lot of the vanilla textures of the game and adds them in different ways. Such as an example, there's a halberd now, and it just takes the battle axe and some of the Warhammer textures and combines them to make it look like a halberd. A halberd is considered a battle axe, making it in that category so that way it actually gets the benefits of using the battle axe skill tree in the two-handed area. So it's completely compatible with Ordinator. Billy Rowe's Ultimate Weapons Collection adds in a lot of high-definition weapons and cool-looking weapons into the game in different areas. This one adds them into the random locations that they're at, but also adds them to be able to craftable at the smithing station. That way you don't have to go hunting for them, you can just craft them. It's a pretty small download size with a significant increase in weapons that it adds. Scoped Bows is the next add-on, with a very big download size for what its small change it brings to the Skyrim. Adds in scopes onto most bows that you can either create or find within the wild. It also increases the slight damage onto a bow because of having to craft it. I think this is a great mod, especially with only the dot as your cursor, since that way you can actually use it. There's one whenever you're standing and one to the left whenever you're crouched. That way you always have a scope to use. Uniques of Oblivion adds in a lot of unique weapons, armor, and jewelry from Oblivion into Skyrim to be found randomly throughout the game. It does have a description of where you can find all of them, but I like to just randomly find them, just so that way it's a surprise and an awesome find. Old Kingdom Weapon Overhaul is the same type of overhaul and retexture mod that it is for the Old Kingdom Armor Overhaul, just for weapons. The big thing that I like about this one is it takes the width of a sword and makes it not like a paddle. Makes it skinnier and looks like a sword instead of a paddle that I'm trying to row up a river. Mythical Ages Weather Overhaul is the weather overhaul that I have chosen over True Storms. Sorry, I needed to take a drink. True Storms I had in my load order for a significantly long time, but I decided that it was time to change and get a different one. Mythical Ages was its replacer. It's a very nice mod that changes in some great ways that didn't have True Storms' side. True Storms was very inefficient when it compared to Mythical Ages for its lighting effects. And that's why we got rid of Surreal Lighting also, which is the mod that we used to tie in with True Storms to have great lighting effects. But everything seemed too yellow outside whenever the sun was out, so I decided to use Mythical Ages, which had weather effects in it and the lighting all in one. I think it's a much better fit than True Storms and Surreal Lighting. Natural Clouds is another add-on that I never had before, creating so that instead of bland two-dimensional clouds floating above you, they're actually three-dimensional, and you can see them actually covering places lower than just above in the sky. You can see them actually be in the way of looking at a mountain in the distance. Better Skies is a great mod, very small download, that adds in northern lights and a lot of stars into the night sky for you to see whenever you're adventuring through Skyrim. Torchlight Expanded is a mod that slightly increases the radius of the light for a torch, since things are a little bit darker within the game. Violin's a kill move mod, adds in extra kill moves and allows you to customize how kill moves are used, when they are used, and how they take effect. I like this mod so that way I can make it so that you can use a kill move in the middle of battle instead of just at only the end of it. Diamond 99 and Maven 2 Female Replacer is a great skin texture mod that replaces all female NPCs and your own character with a small download. Chris 57 and Sundraken Male mod is another one just for the male one. Better Looking Khajiit is kind of a staple mod since Khajiit looked terrible without this one. Better Looking Khajiit Imperious patch changes it so that it's compatible with the Imperious mod. Divine Warpaints changes the look of Warpaints to have a more detailed effect so it doesn't look like it's just mud rubbed on your face. Natural Eyes adds in too many eye colors to be able to describe into the game so that way you can have your own unique eye colors. Beast Hair and Horn and Beard. This is a mod that adds in some hair and beard stuff for the Khajiit and the Argonians, but this mod is actually gone from Bethesda.net. Couldn't find it. Apparently it's been deleted. I would have deleted this, but I love this mod too much to get rid of it, so it is available for me and only the people who've had it downloaded since it's been deleted. Hopefully it'll be back, because there was some controversy with Bethesda when the servers went down. They're still technically partially out. I have access, obviously. I would suggest you trying it, but it might be uploaded because other mods were deleted too. Superior lore-friendly hair adds in some extra hair choices whenever creating your character. Same thing for beards, but this one is a much more detailed and higher resolution one that I significantly can't deal without. Enhanced blood textures. This enhances blood, so that way instead of it being a little splotches on the ground, actually creates a pool and spray effect. Ultimate HD Fire Effects changes all fire within the game to have a much more detailed look instead of just orange and yellow. Actually looks like flames actually flying through the air. Voltage changes all lightning and electrical spells within the game to have a better look to them, where it's brighter white and blue with particle effects that come to it. Take a second to apologize, guys. I may be stuttering over my words or not making all that sense, but I'm talking a lot for a long period of time, and I'm trying to make this video as short as possible. Now that I said that, let's get back to the mods. Deadly Spell Impacts changes all spell impacts within the game to have their own unique look. So for fire, instead of just a small little splotch where it looks like you dug up the ground a bit, it leaves charcoal on the ground. Not charcoal, but charred ground effects. As you can see there's a little bit of fire there on the ground where there was high temperatures. Same thing for frost and lightning effects. Vey is visually animated enchantments. This is a super cool mod that changes so that instead of just a small shine and flickering on your weapons for their enchantments, it creates an actual effect that happens within the game. As an example, for some frost effects, it'll make the whole sword turn dark blue and flash, and then create a little wind spiral that's around it. Skyrim is windy, which is a great mod that adds in wind effects into the game, so that way trees, branches, grass all move as if wind was blowing through the game. Now this is where we get into some of the very high download size. This is graphics pack and the assets and the SMIM add-ons. All of these together are over a gigabyte in size, so pay attention to this. First we start off with graphics pack assets 1, assets 2, and add-on SMIM performance. These all need to be in this exact order. Always put SMIM at the bottom. People will say to put SMIM at the very top so that way it takes effect first. No, you're wrong. Taking effect first doesn't matter when something below it will take effect after, and that is the one that will take effect into the game. If you want something to override something within the game, put it below it, not above it. So we do graphics pack, assets 1, assets 2, and SMIM performance in this exact order. All these mods together changes a significant amount of the textures within the game to look far more detailed than what was in vanilla. Interior lighting and FX is my mod to change the lighting within the game to seem more realistic. Instead of having natural light seeming coming from everywhere, you have to have some type of light source to be able to see within the dark. Divine Textures Creatures Pack is a great mod that changes the look of most creatures within the game to have a more detailed look instead of some very mud-like look. I keep on referring to mud as how vanilla looks, but in my opinion, that's what all vanilla Skyrim looks like, is just mud. Mud everywhere. Next we have Divine Wolves. Same thing as Divine Textures Creatures Pack, but wolves aren't added into it, so Divine Wolves is its own separate mod, which is fine because it's a pretty small download. Splendor Dragon Variants changes how dragons work. Changes so that fire and frost dragons are classified, all the way up to legendary from young. The higher and older a dragon is, the stronger they are when it comes to health, stamina, and attack. It also changes a significant amount of how the textures and colors of dragons are. They are randomly generated, so that way you technically have a much higher amount of dragons that are within the game. But I decided that they were too infrequent, and I wanted some staple ones to stick around. So that's why we downloaded Temper's Mystical Dragon Recolored. This takes all the vanilla dragons in the game and gives them a new color look. Whatever's not affected by Temper's Mystical Dragon Recolored is affected by Splendor. Splendor's compatibility for Tempers when it comes to changing how the dragons are classified is not affected by Tempers. but I would highly recommend putting tempers below Splendor, so that way tempers actually is used. Haste is the next mod, changing a lot of how most things work within the game, such as NPCs and how they see you, how they report you, and carrying weight for some items, such as iron ore, and any ore now is increased to carry weight 3 instead of 1. And leather has been changed also. Also, whenever you change iron ore into an ingot, this increases your smithing. Same with tanning leather, that increases your smithing. Cooking increases your alchemy. These small changes into the game don't seem like a lot, but now you can increase your levels much faster. No enchantment restrictions changes it so that you can't be told no when trying to put one-handed onto your chest piece. You can actually put it there and you can be a full glass cannon doing exceptional damage. It doesn't mean that you can take any type of enchantment, put it anywhere on anything. It just means that any armor enchantment can go on any piece of armor, and any weapon enchantment can go on any weapon. Immersive upgrade leveled items. This is kind of a complicated mod, but I'll do my best to explain. When you get an item that is in a leveled list, which means that if you get as an example, a chill rend at level 23, it is always going to have the level 23 stats. But if you got a different chill rend at level 40, those stats are technically going to be higher than the level 23 one, even if you upgrade them with smithing. So this allows you to go to the Skyforge in Whiterun and essentially create a ritual where you pray to the divines to increase it to the higher level list of what your current level is. That way, you don't have to wait to the end of the game, where you're at your highest level, to go get these fantastic items. You can just play the game however you want, as long as you're able to get the specific items for the ritual to go perform in Skyforge in Whiterun. Master Spells and Scrolls changes it so that it's slightly faster to use them, and that you can also use them one-handed instead of having to use them two-handed. The power of the Dragonborn sets it so that whenever you gain Dragon Souls, it increases your health, magic, and stamina by a certain amount, and your shout cooldown depending on how many souls you have. From 0 to 4 you get nothing, but from 5 to 9 you get 10 increase to health, magic, and stamina, and a 5% shout cooldown. This doesn't seem like a lot, but once you get up to 50, you get 100 extra health, magic, and stamina, and a 50% shout cooldown. It's a significant boost whenever you have a lot of dragons. With this game, hopefully you're going to go fight a lot of dragons and become the true Dragonborn. The Fire Within is also an add-on for this type of thing, for gaining souls and keeping them. This, although, changes how the shouts work. When you gain a lot of souls, it'll change the duration or the cooldown or the power of a shout. It's very dependent on them. The true Dragonborn, when gaining souls, it increases your health, your healing rate, your magic rate, stamina rate, your resistances, all of this stuff up. Whenever you get to 50 to 100, it just gets more and more. So the goal of these three is to make it so that when you're going to play a Dragonborn, the goal is to kill a lot of dragons like you're supposed to, and get more and more powerful. Sorry. Next we have Wildcat Combat of Skyrim. This is a combat mod that changes how the game works whenever it comes to fighting. It improves the combat AI and changes it so that there's an actual injury system within the game, where you might have your arm or your chest or your legs hurt. It also changes so that whenever you swing regularly instead of just a power attack, it takes up stamina. Same thing with using a bow. It changes the damage from the difficulty also from the vanilla. Now, whenever you swing a weapon, you can't turn all the way around and still keep going. You're going to be attack commitment, where you have to attack and then barely be able to turn to recorrect your aim. So you're going to be more careful when swinging this time. Populated dungeons, caves, and ruins increases the amount of enemies within dungeons, caves, and ruins. This is a mod that I recommend you don't enable until you're at least level 20, or else you're going to have a bad time. There's going to be too many enemies for you to be able to fight. Improved Bandits Complete is a great add-on. It makes the bandits in the game more difficult, not as much as Obus, but a little bit more so. I didn't want a huge increase, but I wanted a little bit of an increase. Hardcore Dragons difficulty increases the health of all of the dragons within the game, depending on which one they are. As a example, all of them get a 2.5 times increase, while the weaker ones, like the brown dragons, are going to get a 3.33, and then Alduin is supposed to get a 16.66 times increase to their health. It also changes a little bit of how they fight, so that way when they're flying, they're not supposed to be flying all the time. They'll come down and land. Also, their flying speeds whenever they're going in a circle isn't supposed to be Mach speeds, so they're a little bit slower, so that way you have a chance of actually hitting them. And they're supposed to stop and fly in the middle of the air, shooting down at you more frequently. Series Enhanced Dragons changes that whenever you kill a dragon, they will gain hate for you. So the more dragons you kill, the greater the hate, and the more dragons will come. And whenever you're fighting a dragon, if you have higher hate, they can call out and gain reinforcements, which means that you might end up fighting 3 or 4 different types of dragons, so be careful with your hate. You can reduce it by releasing some souls to reduce the hate of them, but if you do that, then you also lose some of your power from the Dragonborn mods up above. So it depends. Are you true Dragonborn enough? That was dumb. Mighty Dragons increases the health, stamina, physical attack, and gold drop on dragons. With these 3 mods here, it increases the difficulty of dragons a lot, which is what I want because they're supposed to be very tough fights. They're not supposed to be easy like they are in vanilla. And with having... Oh, yes, also dragons have more health. There's another increase to health. Dragons are supposed to be difficult. With the changes for Ordinator and all these other things, you're going to be a lot stronger, but also the enemies are going to be a lot more difficult. Stronger bosses of Skyrim affects the main 3 bad boys, such as Marak, Harkon, and Alduin, so that they do a lot more damage, they have a lot more health, and they don't have a level cap, so that way they can actually go up to the same level as you, as high as you can go. Rebalanced encounter zones changes so that whenever you load into an area, vanilla Skyrim will see that you are level 10. Instead of grabbing a level 3 enemy and throwing it in there, it will instead grab up to a level 9 and throw it in there, making so that you're fighting much higher leveled enemies at most times, making the game more difficult. Mortal Enemies SE changes some of the combat within Skyrim 2. I wanted this below Wildcat because I like these changes better. So that way you end up a lot committed to attacks, just like how NPCs are going to be committed to attacks. Better combat AI, I wanted to overwrite the Wildcat AI because I find this one to make it so that they're smarter. So that way whenever you get staggered by an arrow or something, a enemy NPC with a battle axe or something will charge in instead of sitting back. Bandit Healers adds in the ability for magic bandits to be able to use healing on themselves or enemies. Not enemies, but their allies. They do tend to use it only on themselves a lot, but as you get up to higher levels, they can heal their allies, so that way you end up fighting the bandit chief with tons of armor and a big battle axe, and he keeps on getting healed by his bandit healer, so you have to prioritize killing that bandit healer. Talkative Dragons makes it so that way whenever you're fighting a dragon, they can talk shit at you whenever you're fighting, making it a lot more funny. Training adjustments changes that way you can train more within a level, and also the cost. Instead of it being multiplied each time that you do it by like 2 times, it's a little bit less. A quality world map is the next one, which changes the map of the game to look a lot more detailed. and this one is vivid stone roads, so that way you can see the roads of the game, so that way you can figure out where you're going a little bit better from the map. Radiant Unique Potions and Poisons changes the textures of all potions and poisons to have a very different look than the vanilla version. Next, we get into our Skyland mods. Forgive me for the IMG, the image freaking thing here, but once you have so many mods, it starts messing up and showing this. So we have Skyland 1K as our first one, changing a lot of roads and landscapes, the ground, everything. Next we have Towns and Villages, Whiterun Cobblestones, Mountains, and the LODs. This is the load order distance, loading them at a larger distance. These need to be in this order. So it goes Skyland 1K, Towns and Villages, Whiterun Cobblestone, Mountains, LODs. Right? It's pretty simple as what they do because it's in their names. Towns and Villages are changed for the textures on this one. Whiterun Cobblestones are now changed instead of it being like just a bunch of random stones. It actually looks like a city floor. Mountains are changed at a distance. LODs are changed at a distance, so that way they're looking a little bit better whenever it's outside of your loading area. It looks to match what's within your loading area. So put these in this order. That's what makes them work best. Next we have JK Skyrim All-in-One. This probably is my most favorite mod in the game. Maybe tied. JK Skyrim is a fantastic mod that changes how the look of towns, cities, and some random areas to have just additional stuff to make it look more epic. If you were looking at my video from earlier, the vanilla versus modded Skyrim, you saw how Whiterun looked when compared from vanilla to the modded one. That's mainly because of JK Skyrim. Next we have Hunter's Cabin of Riverwood. This adds a little Hunter's Cabin to the side of Riverwood for a very early start home. It's pretty easy. Breeze Home, this is a change of Breeze Home in Whiterun. It's very awesome, very popular mod. Bruta Stormcloak Home is another one that's pretty popular, that's out by Windhelm. Ruska is down by Riften, another home mod. I have these few home mods just because I feel like all the homes within the vanilla game are kind of boring. Also, I don't want to have to build them. Immersive Civil War Cleanup is a mod where when you are fighting in Whiterun and other holds and cities, there's going to be damage. This, as you go over time, will get cleaned up and fixed, so that way it's not just laying there for forever. That was something that I had a big problem with from the vanilla game. Stocked shops. This affects a lot of the main stores within Skyrim. So that way they look like they have all the items that's actually in their shop inventory, to look like they have stuff instead of just an empty home with a bookshelf with one potion and an iron armor on it. Next we have ward walls relocated. So some of the ward walls within the game are hidden behind content. So there are some word walls you can't get unless you join the Mage's College. Some that you can't get unless you join the Thieves Guild. These take those ones that you have to join something to go do and places them randomly within the world. Now, it's not random because there's an actual list of where you're going to find them, and it's in the mod. So if you're looking for a specific one, you can go in the list of the mod and go find it. But it's technically random to you because you don't know where it's at. You know what I mean? Thunderchild is an overhaul to shouts. Adding in new shouts, how the vanilla ones and new ones affect people, and getting a boost to them as you worship Kine. So you can get up to a 200% increase on power and cooldown on shouts if you invest into it. It gives you a little quest to do, and you get this started by going to High Hrothgar. JK Skyrim Thunderchild patch is a patch that fixes something that messes something up in Whiterun, where two items are clipped together. This gets it so that there's only one item, so they're not clipping. The Parthenax Dilemma allows you to be able to side with the Blades or Parthenax without having to kill the other. You know what I mean? If you side with the Blades, you have to kill Parthenax. This allows you to not have to do that, where you can side with the Blades but still keep Parthenax alive. Open Civil War was the original version of how the Civil War was supposed to go. Instead of fighting just 2 main battles, one at Whiterun and then one at either Windhelm or Solitude, now you have to capture all of the holds, all of the major cities, and the enemy can capture ones back. This was supposed to be the original Civil War, and it's great things that they were able to include this into the game through a mod. Mainland Stalrim adds in Stalrim onto the mainland of Skyrim, so that way you can actually get Stalrim armor without having to go to Solstheim. Because if you're not wanting to be a Dragonborn, you can't go get Stalrim armor unless you randomly find it within the game. So this allows you to be able to use Stalrim armor if you're not wanting to be a Dragonborn. Northern Grass is a grass mod that changes the look of all grass within the game to have much more realistic look. It's a pretty big download for a grass mod, but I think it's totally worth it because it's the most stable one. Divine Texture Pack trees changes the look of trees also, so that way they don't look like just a log of poop. They actually look like a real tree. Landscape fixes for grass mods changes so that way some of the new places within the game don't have grass peeking up through the bottom of it. If there's a building above it, it's supposed to delete that grass so it doesn't peek through. This is a big thing because this increases the FPS within your game and the stability. It's a great mod to include even if you're not using grass mods, because it does help even for vanilla. Realistic Water 2 is a must-have mod for changing the water of the game. If you saw my video from before, vanilla versus modded, you saw what the water looked like in vanilla and what it looked like in modded. This is the culprit of it. So you definitely want to get this. Changes the look of all the water within the game and the sound effects of them, from waterfalls specifically. Better Water for Realistic Water 2 is just a little bit of an add-on to increase some of the textures for other areas. JK Skyrim Realistic Water 2 is a patch for JK Skyrim and Realistic Water 2. There's a lot of patches for JK Skyrim, and that's because it's a big overhaul to most places within the game. So it's gonna conflict with other things. Alternate Start Living Another Life changes it so that way you get to spawn in this little cell and choose where you're going to start with your life instead of having to go through the vanilla start of the game. That in itself is worth downloading this mod. Immersive patrols, random Civil War, factions will walk around. The elves will randomly walk around. Random adventurers will walk around. That way you end up like seeing battles or something. If you're part of the Imperials and you see a Stormcloak battalion, group walking towards you, they're gonna beat your ass because you're in the Imperials and they somehow know. Dynamic dungeon loots makes it so that way whenever you get to the final chest in a dungeon, and it's that big one, it's gonna be more worth it this time because it's number one, gonna spawn more items into it and have higher chances to give you better stuff. Soul gems glow when full, so this makes it so that whenever a soul gem is full and you see it open in the world, like just random, you'll be able to tell if it's empty or if it's full right off the bat. Better Horses changes a little bit of how horses work, how they act, and they're prioritized within the game. We have TLS more wildlife, spawns more wildlife within the game so you can fight them. If you want to be a hunter, there you go. Rich Merchants is Skyrim. This mod needs to be downloaded. Instead of having 500 gold each time, now they're going to have 10,000. That way you can take all your shit to them that you've been hoarding for the last 3 hours while you walk through one dungeon and you picked up every damn thing, every pot. You could take it and sell it to Belethor and sell everything. And you get all the money instead of waiting 2 days and then him getting money back and then you're selling more stuff and then waiting 2 days and then him getting money back and then selling him more stuff. You can sell him all of your stuff at once. Star, 50% more gold. You find 50% more gold within the game everywhere. Doesn't mean that everything is worth 50% more gold. It's just finding gold on corpses, enemies, within pots. You're going to find 50% more. Stay Arrow Stay increases the amount of arrows that can be in an enemy at once. Now instead of 3, there's 25. And instead of 15 in the world, there's 50. That way you can pin missile people to look like a pin thingy. Pin pouch. It's pretty cool. Just genuinely intelligent soul gems. This mod is great because I know for a fact you soul trapped an enemy, say a mammoth, because you're grand soul gem hunting. Oh crap. You don't have any grand soul gems because that skeever that killed on the way to kill the mammoth went and filled up in the grand soul gem because there weren't any lesser soul gems. Instead, it'll now change them around so that way actual grand soul gems will go into grand and they won't be filled up by smaller souls. You know, that's such a great mod to have because it's made it so much easier. TLS FPS Ultimate gets rid of a lot of the effects in the game that are pretty useless, such as like random falling leaves like in Riften, little items on the ground, you know, that aren't supposed to be there. This makes it so that way those aren't generated, which naturally increases your FPS because it's not working to generate those items within the game. It doesn't just uncap the FPS in the game, it just gets rid of these other items that take a lot of power to generate. So that way the game doesn't have to work on generating them, naturally increasing your FPS. Not uncapping it, but that way it's not having to work on it. You can have 2 of these. I don't recommend it. I'd recommend just having 1. If you're going to have to, do this one and then the insignificant object remover. Those 2 seem to work pretty well together. This is the Mysticism and Ordinator patch. I have it way down here because this isn't like my patch section, except for if the patch is specified to be somewhere else, I put the patches down at the bottom. So this makes them so that they work together pretty seamlessly. Apocalypse and Ordinator compatibility patch. You need this one because you're going to have both. Old Kingdom weapon overhaul for USEP. Old Kingdom weapon overhaul doesn't seem to work well with the unofficial Skyrim Special Edition patch. This patch makes them work together. I'm not sure what it does, but whenever you don't have this one installed, it messes them up. So you're going to want this. Amazing follower tweaks. The big thing about this that I like is it increases the amount of followers that you can have. That's pretty much all I use it for, but you can be a lot more detailed on what followers do with this mod. Next we have color patches remover. In the game you're going to see this orange square out of nowhere for no reason sitting there. And specifically in the vampire castle, the doors will be orange. This gets rid of those, so put this as low as possible. And then we have disable God Rays, because God Rays are pretty annoying and they take a lot of the FPS out of the game. So I want them gone. Now that is my full load order. All 148 mods. This is a very long video. I really appreciate you guys sticking out and going through this whole thing with me. I'm not going to cut this into different videos. It's all going to be one thing. Thank you for watching. If you guys liked the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon to get notified whenever I release new videos. Leave me a comment below to tell me how do you like it. Do you like my loot order? Did you like the mods that I included in it? Was it cohesive enough to understand what I was saying? If you have questions on it, leave me a comment. Tweet me on Twitter. Go to my Discord and ask me there. Those are all options to be able to get to me. I'm pretty good at responding quickly, so please hit me up with any questions that you have. Thanks, guys. I'll be back again with some more videos, possibly a guide to making your own load order instead of just copying what you see on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be coming next, my next big video. Thanks again. I'll catch you guys next time.